Welcome back to our live coverage of the DreamHack Open Fall, and with so much on the line, so many points, so much money, Tom, the first map really couldn't have been too much more of a bloodbath. We may not see more one-sided affairs than that over the duration of this tournament. It was Vitality stomping through Nuke, and now Dust 2 is up next.
Well, one of the things I was going to bring up at the sort of the beginning, like obviously we've had changes to the recent RMR, where Vitality were previously qualified because of the 3 events. They were qualified completely, and then more potentially could be added, so they're not anymore. So going into this, I was like, oh, I feel really bad for Vitality. They basically already had themselves qualification. I don't feel bad for them anymore. They've just come in here and absolutely pummeled Mousesports. You had RPK looking like his old self, just destroying everyone. Shox even had like a vintage performance of just headshotting everybody anywhere he went. I'm not worried for Vitality. I think they're going to be absolutely fine. I'm scared for Mousesports though, because they're heading into a Dust 2, a map they've not looked particularly great on recently. They've got a new player, and they're up against arguably one of the better Dust 2 teams we currently have in European Counter-Strike. So good luck.
Yeah, as you say, I mean, RPK just by himself had a 1.8 rating. That is absurd. I'm not saying that he's a bad player by any stretch, but he's a guy that's been around for so long that you don't expect him to be posting up these kind of stats, especially with some of his teammates there. 125.8 ADR, 26 kills and 13 deaths. The guy had an unreal performance, but then you look at Shox. At one point, he was 10-1. He was absolutely destroying to the degree where ZywOo didn't need to be that prevalent. And now we go to Dust 2, a map where ZywOo absolutely could take over and run Rampage through Mousesports again.
Well, yeah, that's the most terrifying thing on this map at the moment is that I would almost argue the second AWP of Vitality is better than the primary AWP of Mousesports. I think it's an arguable thing when you look at this team. And then the primary AWP of Vitality is, well, arguably the best player in the world. So it's a scary thing going into a more
and I wonder if Chris will be able to stand toe-to-toe, because he was actually statistically one of the weakest players on Nuke. It is a map that Karrigan has come out and said he doesn't really like playing the AWP on that much, so fair enough, may not have been too comfortable. And to be fair, when your entire team is getting eviscerated around you, how much work can you reasonably do with an AWP anyway? You're just going to get rushed down and fragged out. So I'm very curious to see if Chris can step up here. Frozen had a couple of really big moments. You know, he was in clutches. There was one whiff against ZywOo, but there was a lot of moments where he basically was dragging the rest of his team, kicking and screaming through rounds and desperately trying to get them more. So there were at least glimpses of positivity that we can move into, Tom. It wasn't a complete disaster, even though the scoreline would suggest it was.
Yeah, they've got the side start into this one, and I think the things we need to see going forward for Mousesports is the young trio. We need BMAS, we need Brops, and we definitely need Frozen if they're going to have a chance in this match, because this is one Vitality they're more than ready for. Now, this is an aggressive peak coming out from long, but they've left Apex behind in a bit of a lurk to try and catch people off through the rotation. In fact, he's actually taken some of the fights on the site. They're going to try and get rid of him, but they're taking so much time, and Apex still gets away with one. Somehow that works out way better than it ever should have done, and the entries for the rest of the players have left Frozen again. Well, you spoke about his clutches. You spoke about his attempts. 1v4, Vince?
I'm going to say it's unlikely, Tom, but, you know, I would love to see him pull it off. I'm not sure if he believes in himself, though. I mean, the fact is he's taken no damage, so it's only $350 to upgrade to head armor, and if they did want to go for a full buy behind this, which I would assume they probably do with like scouts. You know, Chris J's a phenomenal scouter and something that definitely needs to be mentioned on Dust 2. This does give him a little bit to play with the P250, but obviously it's always brutal after losing 16-6 to then have to pull back and save a Kevlar on P250 in the first pistol. Like, that hurts. But Vitality, like, not showing any signs of slowing down. They nearly got a team ace as well. It's only RPK that doesn't get one.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was surprised with how much... Well, firstly, how much ground Apex was able to take. But have you ever seen anybody run back through CT and start fighting the players on site in a pistol round? Like, I can't think of that happening on a normal round. Like that was really weird. And in fact, they ended up jumping down and trying to kill him. And it almost just seemed like Mousesports were trying to brawl their way out of that situation because they gave up too much space. So I don't know. That was a peculiar pistol round, and Apex managed to get away with not only a kill, but also he completely ruined any setup that they have planned. So I'm really hoping that's not a running theme, and that was just a bit of a mishap in round number 1.
I suppose we'll find out the answers to that going through into the latter rounds. But what we know right now is Vitality full Galils, interestingly enough. And as expected, Chris has got the scout. I believe Frozen bought it and dropped it for him at spawn. Has also tagged up shocks through the double doors. So some good little bits of damage being inflicted across. Carrigan now gets pressured, but doesn't even try to stand his ground. Just runs straight back to the site and will get the information for his teammates and survive.
Yeah, with the investment into Galils, this makes a lot of sense for Vitality. You don't want to be pressuring like angles like tunnels or short, because that's where the pistols are going to have a field day, and that's where your weapon overall loses its value. Whereas you can see the positions currently at Apex, holding at range, basically just using the gun to the best of his ability. It makes a lot of sense. On the other side of things, the Deagles have come out of play. Now, within the Asia RMR, we had a thing of the curse of the 4 Deagles, where this would win rounds for a team that made absolutely no sense. Now, I'm praying to God this hasn't converted over to Europe, as I have as well. But maybe it has. Maybe it has. No, this can't come over. This isn't allowed, Vince. Like, oh no. It's 10 seconds left.
The time.
There's 10 seconds. Oh, they've got it. They've got... No, never mind. Never mind. It's left up to Shocks. He's got to try and win the 1v2. It's not going to happen. Why did I bring it up? Why did I bring it up? I bet you Blair is cackling to himself right now off the back of that, because I thought, you know what, Vince? I'll bring that up. A little bit of banter. You know, Asian Counter-Strike. Ha, ha, ha. 4 Deagles and the curse. And then it happens in the Mousesports game.
Oh, no.
Blair just messaged me saying, I am cackling.
Of course he is. Some people just love to watch the world burn, you know? They at least got a bomb plant, Tom, so we are going back in with a couple of AKs and the scout as well. But yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing. And a very similar thing happened at the start of Nuke. You know, Mousesports instantly broke Vitality back. Now, obviously, the way that map ended was a bit of a dumpster fire in itself if you're a Mousesports fan, but they'll be hoping they can at least make the most of this opportunity and start to put some rounds together.
I'm not gonna lie, I can't believe that actually just happened. I'm still kind of in shock that... So Carrigan gets a wonderful 3K there. I want to, like, big credit to him. I feel like I didn't quite give that the justice it deserved, but I was just so shocked that I've just managed to bring up that I brought over a curse from Asian Counter-Strike into Europe. I apologize to everybody in advance. I've done this on day 1 of the tournament, and now you guys are cursed for eternity. But join me in my suffering. We'll see if Vitality, unfortunately, they've only invested into 2 Deagles, so we don't know if it will work quite as well. But they are going to go for a short play. Now, this normally guarantees them a bomb plant, especially with Chris J only having a scout. He'd have to do something utterly incredible, which, well, he's known for making plays of the years. This would definitely be up there as one of them. Not the best start, though.
Not quite the wolf this time around. Hasn't been able to stop the plant from going down, as you highlighted. If that's an AWP, you have the ability to just land the one-tap, pull back, and relocate. But now, in a post-plant, Chris J does connect for the first shot, and also Zaiwu has been bested, but RPK's Deagle comes good for another one. Shock spraying in for a second. This retake looking a little bit dicey, but Shocks misses out. And now Mizuta needs to stand his ground with the Deagle. Frozen doesn't allow it to come to fruition. Mousesports will pick up a second, but it's at the cost of 3 lives.
Counter-terrorists win.
Yeah, it's not a bad round in isolation for Vitality at all. In fact, well, if they were feeling really ballsy, they could go for another buy here if they really wanted to, thanks to the bomb plant. But realistically, the safer option, just get a few Deagles, do some extra damage, keep the economy low for Mousesports, and then you kind of look at this going into, what, round number 5 with a pretty good buy. The thing I'm quite happy about, though, is that Mousesports have actually managed to hold on this time. Because if we saw the exact same start to the last map, I could very easily see this spiraling out of control.
They just have to hope that Mousesports have woken up after that beating on the first map. It was a shock to the system, and they've jolted into life. Vitality, their life will have to be saved by some deagles. They have a flashbang they can toss over onto short, and maybe they can get another bomb plant, and that will get them a really good buy into the next round. Because Chris J stuck with the scout as opposed to the AWP, even if he had connected that shot in midair, may not have mattered, but it's a Glock! A Glock at that range against Chris J takes him out with a flashbang alongside it. And I tell you what, Mousesports, if you concede this round, this would be an absolute disaster of the highest order. Flashes through, RPK and Apex both connect with kills. What the hell is going on, Tom? How have Vitality potentially pulled this off?
They're saving. They've given it up. They're just going to hold on to the 2 AKs. I can't believe it. As said, I apologize, everyone. I've brought a curse over with me that there are no bounds, it seems, because this wasn't even like applied to anything anymore. That's just them walking onto the A site, getting a free plant, and then killing everyone along the way. They haven't lost a single player. I almost want to quote Blair from that event and just go Glocks, because that's what that was. I can't fathom what's going on. And Mousesports, that's unacceptable. He won it from that range. This is unbelievable. The timing from Apex was superb, of course, to get in on that flank, but dear Lord, Mousesports, that's an unlosable round.
I honestly feel like it's like a 1 in 1,000 play that somehow Vitality have pulled off. And now Karrigan gets up close with the MP9 and mows down Zaiwu and Mizuta. Rops has fallen in middle, but still Mousesports have the advantage. What a strange game of back and forth. This roller coaster of emotions on both teams could be going the way of Mousesports, but they fully and entirely rotated off B. It's completely open.
I went for what seems like a bit more of a gamble play, but they've ended up with a hell of a lot of AKs. It is going to end up in an afterplant position for Vitality, and we know how tough this B site of Dust 2 can be. It's one of the toughest sites in the game to retake. The change of the doors made very little difference to that, but we'll see if Mousesports can make this work. They have an incendiary, a couple of flashbangs, but they have to be wary of shocks, and the timing goes perfectly in his favor. Now they have to scurry to get rid of this man, and Vince, they succeed.
They do just succeed, but now half of the fuse is gone. They need to make moves, and they need to make them quickly. Apex now standing in position for 2 kills. Below the window, he will strike. And Vitality, losing the first 2 players on long by Karrigan's MP9, it looked bad. But they weather the storm, they come out ahead, and they reset Mousesports' economy.
This is brutal, because at least the last round, sure, it was atrocious, but like they had that lifeline of, okay, at least we have some money. Now that's gone too. Vitality, well, let's be real. This should have been a 4-1 score at a minimum for Mousesports going into this second map, a map that's not their choice. And instead, you've just given momentum over to Vitality on their T side, which if you've ever watched a competitive game of Counter-Strike before, you know that the worst possible map to give momentum over to your teammate is Dust 2. Like, they're just going to start running over you with individuals. You've now had an incredible round coming out from the likes of Apex in that 1v2. He's not a man that needs any more confidence. And now they're just looking to farm up cash. The Zeus not going to achieve anything. Vitality 4-2 in the lead, a scoreline we shouldn't have seen in this matchup, at least from what had happened in the early couple of rounds. Now there needs to be a breakback soon. Otherwise, I question whether or not mentally Mousesports are going to be able to come back from this, because that's so rough to start off this second map.
It has to be mentally exhausting and draining to have such wins like with Deagles, and you instantly get broke back with effectively a Glock and a couple of Deags. Just, honestly, this roller coaster of emotions, as I said before, ebbing and flowing, up and down, and Vitality with a 2-round lead on Mousesports, who only have a smoke and 4 flashbangs remaining. No kits. They went for firepower over utility, and there's just shy of a minute and a half left. This is incredibly grim for Mousesports. They desperately need to get these first couple of kills. Otherwise, this round will just escalate out of control. And that's exactly what's happening. Apex with a quick-fire double entry leaves only Carrigan alone on long and no one to help him out.
And unless they find a very quick pick, this should already be a save call. Like, you've completely lost the A site. Maybe Carrigan can find the bomb? Okay, never mind. He doesn't win the duel versus site. That's a little bit of a worry. Like, if they've got the A site and just drop the bomb top mid, that could have made things interesting. But, well, Zywoo wins the duel just about versus Carrigan. And, yeah, as I said, the remaining two players have already gone off to save. If anything, although maybe a little bit weird to have the bomb sat there alone, it has actually worked out in Vitality's favor because they've now removed a gun for free. And I imagine with this current bank, Apex on over $10,000, another couple of players around the 6,000 mark, they're going to try and remove these guns. And look how far on the hunt they already are as they've just planted the bomb.
Yeah, they even delayed the bomb plant so they could get closer. And now Frozen and Rot put their heads to the ground like ostriches, hoping that the Predators will pass them by. There will be no free passage. Vitality chomped down. Again, Mousesports in trouble. As you can see on the screen right now, this is what's going on in the other group with Nip actually potentially losing against Sprout. And they have lost Vertigo to kick things off.
What? They lost 8 rounds in a row. I remember at the halftime or in between the maps, I said to you, I was like, oh, Nip are winning 13-9. I've got to stop talking. I feel like it's too early for this sort of stuff to just like early in the tournament, not early in the day. I'm not that bad, but yeah, they lost 8 rounds in a row. What a comeback from Sprout. That's huge as well because we know that like you compare like a lot of the groups. Obviously, it's based off RMR points. There's a lot of opportunity in Group D for a team like Sprout if they can get an early win, especially with 3 teams. Well, in theory, getting out of the groups because of one going into the lower bracket. A victory can almost be enough to get you through as long as someone goes 0-3.
Yeah, I mean, Sprout are a team that have really excelled in this online period of Counter-Strike. They've been doing so well for themselves. So to come back and get that first map is huge. Rops,
The Germans
burned out into the open, and yeah, the Germans doing well. Strange actually to look at Mousesports and not have any Germans in this team. For the longest time they did.
Let's be real though, I'm not sure I'm too unhappy with that. Like the couple of rosters that they've had since have been, well, exciting, I think, to say the least. Like the last Mousesports roster we had was probably my favorite Mousesports roster that's ever been. And this one has a lot of potential. I think that's what we're looking at this point. A lot of young players, a lot of talent, but it seems like at this point they're still putting the pieces together. Some serious vulnerabilities being exploited almost by this Vitality team. A late take onto the A side, but it never really looked like anything was going to go wrong. BMAS in the corners. I was just going to wide peek him with an AWP. I think if we were talking about a team building momentum and confidence, well, Vitality peeking 4 men into CT might be the epitome of that.
Oh, yeah. And the other teams in this group looking on this game, maybe, you know, some deep breaths. Like, oh, no, Vitality is showing up. They're actually looking pretty damn good.
Yeah, again, like looking at this group, like Fnatic, we really don't know what to expect from them. Recently, the form has not been fantastic. And OG have actually been a team on the rise. They got into their first grand final since the making of this roster with the New York event that just finished. Unfortunately, like FaZe just seemed to then turn up and destroy them in the final. But hey, baby steps for them. They've slowly been getting better and better. As said, Fnatic, like the problem is, I feel like the second you doubt Fnatic, they win. Like that's the problem. The second you go, well, you know, they haven't been good for a while. They haven't been good since the beginning of the year. They should be the ones like at the lower end of this group, and then they'll probably just go and beat everyone, which is just how they seem to roll. So I don't know. And Mousesports, we don't know what to expect. I think for me, if you're looking at the top 2, it should be Vitality and OG, but I don't want to be the one banking on that.
Oh yeah, I feel like this is definitely a group of death. and it's difficult to determine which of the teams goes through or which one doesn't, I suppose, is another way of looking at it. But Vitality now starting to look just that little bit more deadly. With each passing round, they get closer and closer to taking this best of 3. And I know it seems like we may be overstepping the mark, and perhaps we are, because Frozen gets 2, and only ZywOo comes back in for the tease. Now, we know this guy is capable of madness, but I don't think he anticipates there's a player down in the car.
Oh, no!
Rob snatches at his opportunity. He doesn't realize ZywOo wasn't about to peek him, so he had to go for it. And in doing so, ZywOo now has a chance. He has an opportunity to actually strike in. Spins around for the first, but BMAS locks it with the AWP. My God, I thought he'd done it.
Yeah, you almost have to think a split-second difference on BMAS walking through that door, and maybe ZywOo gets both of those players. That shot on Karrigan is unreal. I definitely want to see that one again. This also, like, okay, Rops misses his shot, but that reaction, it's just, there's nothing better than watching ZywOo playing well. And as we've said so far in this series, he really hasn't had to. That was the first real attempt. And, well, with the amount of money that Vitality have, the pressure now on Karrigan, he's good for 1. Now, Frozen, bear in mind, he was deep within the B site in the last round. A completely different setup from Mousesports, trying their best to be as dynamic as possible. This map is almost famous for that sort of play, and they're not going to check him. This could be all but perfect. A freebie. He spotted the bomb as well. ZywOo just going to throw that one away. Frozen's desperately trying to grasp a second player. He has to try and pounce now, though, as Masuta will have spotted him. It ends up just being a 1-for-1 trade, and I don't think Frozen will be too happy with that.
No, I honestly feel as if they could have done more out of that situation. There was so much time left. He'd seen the bomb had been tossed back onto long, so they knew it wouldn't be like a fast B hit or even middle anytime soon. But Rops maybe can still salvage this yet. For Mousesports to get 2 in a row. He looks to try and pull himself back, and now they are hitting the B side. They've given it up. Shox makes the most of this. Run on in. Flashbang lands in his eyes, now clearing away, and Shox flicks for the first, and Masuta is there for the second. Chris J's AWP is all that remains for Mousesports, and he is isolated from his fallen teammates, flashing himself through the smoke, but doesn't want to push in, and now he's given his position away. With the economy in such bad shape, does it really seem like a great idea to go for this? I mean, I know he's got supreme confidence in himself and absolutely should. On his day, he's an absolute monster. But the way this game has gone so far, economically speaking, it is so brutal for his team to lose him there. That's an AWP they could have been using, and instead Vitality take a 7-3 lead.
I know Maniac's been all over this match so far, but that's something I think we've all noticed. Is there's been multiple times now that there's been opening picks going the way of Mousesports, or at least a man advantage lead, and they've lost the round. And it's just happened again. That was a 2v3 that Shox and Masuta, well, they made it look like they've been playing together for years and years. Like, they look so comfortable playing together. Karrigan, though, that is a free AWP, a worthwhile trade, something he can attempt to try and bring something back in this round. We know he's been picking up the AWP quite a bit, although thus far on this map, it's been more, well, initially Chris J, and then we also saw Rops picking it up a little bit here. A quick reaction, though, from the side of Vitality, as they now try and split into middle. They've taken a fair amount of damage, but eventually every single kill goes their way. And Chris, after retrieving that AWP, again, just looks to try and save.
Yeah, this time, no 1v2 and up close. He is a mile away from the bomb, so wants to try and save, but Shox knows exactly what's coming up. Still gets put down, though, and plugged by the AWP. Feel like Shox will be disappointed he didn't take down that frag, and Apex and RPK are both low. Chris J is still holding on, still alive, and still has the AWP. He's making this costly for the tees and can dance around the flames.
The Vitality, well, they're losing a lot of guns, but their money is through the roof. And removing this AWP, I think they've realized this is probably worth it. RPK be a little bit more hesitant, but it is looking like he's going to use the bomb to try and peek in, and he gets him. The last second, that's so painful for Chris. Of course, he's done some damage, as said, and money-wise, they're absolutely fine. He can still rebuy into this next round, but well, we'll see if that costs them in the future. If there's a round without an AWP or even just without much weaponry at all, we'll know that, well, RPK will probably be smiling on the other side of it.
He saw a bit of a grimace on Chris, and I feel what RPK did there is use the detonation of the bomb to mask his footsteps.
Yeah.
That was really cool. So Chris didn't know which angle he'd be coming from or how close he was. So a big pick. It can still buy, but Rob's instantly neutralized by RPK, and the tank showing no signs of slowing down, but neither is Frozen. Shocks and Apex spring into a couple of kills before BMAS suppresses Apex down one more time. So much action in such a short period of time, though, allows Vitality some options. They don't have to rush the site, but they have gone for the plant regardless. And now Shocks, who is isolated from his teammate, may not be called upon yet because ZywOo is locking it down by his lonesome. And Chris J, not for the first time, has an arduous task ahead of him, but at least he will get the one before he walks into the crosshair of Shocks. And Vitality have a 9-3 lead. I'm getting a little bit of deja vu from Nuke.
Yeah, a couple of clutch rounds that every single one of them just seemed to be going the way of Vitality. That's the thing. There's not been a man in the positions that we've seen them in that has made a single mistake. Like that's really impressive. Like you talk about, as again, Masuta being more of a rookie. We saw him in that 2v3 earlier, played it perfectly. We've seen Shocks in multiple clutch situations so far today. I can't think of one that he's lost, and well, that's defining this match at the moment. And sure, like there's been a few clean ones on the side of Vitality as well, but for Mousesports, just a clutch or two, it could have been a very different story. Unfortunately, in rounds like this, they've just been getting absolutely slaughtered.
Just being disintegrated, honestly, over and over again, as Vitality continue to pillage and raise each and every one of the sites. Each and every avenue, alleyway has been blockaded by Frenchmen. And Masuta does not allow Chris J safe passage through middle. Frozen last man standing has had a couple of cheeky plays in the likes of Pit, but by and large has been over on the B side of the map. And Vitality just sit in position and wait. Like they want to make sure there are no survivors coming out of this round. Don't give Frozen even a glimmer of an opportunity to save or do any damage.
Yeah, that's the thing with him, like consistently moving positions and being killed on different parts of the map. They don't want to overface it. They don't want to take too many risks that could lose them a gun or two. Well, not for the monetary gain, but more so they just don't want to give Mousesports anything extra. Don't want to give them any confidence or the weapon itself. So they're just going to make sure they keep this one nice and clean. And that's the thing that sort of allowed them to really run away with this. As mentioned, like in a lot of the rounds, we've seen them have some 1v1s, 2v2s that have been relatively close. Obviously, the second the bomb seems to go down on the B side, I think you can pretty much just push all your chips onto the side of Vitality because they are winning every single one of those after plants. But in these pistol anti-eco rounds, other than the first one, they've been more like this, where Vitality are just able to run over things like, sure, maybe an AWP or something will go into the hands of the opposition every once in a while, but they've done very, very well at keeping them clean. And that's why, well, if you look at their bank at the moment, it's still booming, even though we've had those closer rounds.
So many rounds back-to-back will always help that as well, of course. With Mousesports, at least they have some round loss bonus coming up, but we're getting towards the business end of the half and it starts to matter less and less. They do have double ops, which is something that maybe can facilitate another couple of rounds. Chris J going aggressively, deciding the best defense is an offense, because honestly, when they've been on the back foot, it's just been Vitality playing with their food. So at least up close, he gets a bit of information for the rest of his teammates, and if RPK can go down to his hands, then that will be a pretty big part of the burden that goes with him. Flashbang in could not have been better. Oh my god, he flick headshots RPK! That is outrageous!
Nope, that's not allowed. That's absolutely ridiculous, and hopefully that puts some wins in the sails of the side of Mousesports. The second kill comes up off the back of Beam. It's definitely not as impressive as the first, but they'll take it all the same. A two-man advantage now for Mousesports. Off some ludicrousy, but they've got to hold on to it. And although we may marvel at the brilliance of Chris J, they haven't been able to hold on to a lot of these rounds, and Vitality have done a fantastic job of, in both maps, in fact, the second they lose a player or two, they fight back even stronger.
Yeah, Berserker Rage coming to the forefront again. 30 seconds. Vitality making moves like ZywOo, shutting down Chris J. He'll have no more crazy flicks left in him for this round at least. And with that pick, Vitality decide with 20 seconds, they don't want to hit A after all. They want to push through middle over towards B, but it's without any smokes covering the cross, but they have supreme confidence in ZywOo. 10 seconds to go. Karrigan making moves around the back of them. Will he be in time, though, to save Rops's life? No, Rops doesn't need saving. He's fine by himself to shut it down. He can't deny the bomb plant. They won't care. Vitality have more than enough funds to buy anyway. Mousesports get the round. It's the one they were looking for.
I can't believe that almost worked. Like, it came down to Rops just hitting the shot on the first player. This, I'm not sure I can understand. What?
I love it, man.
The worst that he looked away. It almost like he just went for a 180 midway through the... That's ridiculous. ZywOo's just gonna own Rops, though. That's the B-side defender gone, and actually the CT side were going for a play towards long and short at the same time. It's just going to end up with a double entry. Sure, they take down Apex in response, but the rest of the Ts have managed to gain control of long, and while walking into the crosshair, no scope flash wall bang this time for Chris J. He's just going to meet ZywOo instead. And now they're on a rotation back towards the B-side. There's nobody there, Vince. It's completely open.
Yeah, it's pretty demoralizing that it takes a no-scope flick flash, you know, through the wall in RPK's head for them to even get around. Like, without that, they're kind of struggling. And these aren't plays that you can bank on round in, round out. As good as Chris is, asking a bit too much. And now Vitality, with the post-plant in their eyes, it's only a matter of time before they do go for it. RPK just doing his due diligence, making sure there's no players hiding around these boxes. Now knowing that that's the case, ZywOo has them on the cross, and he's just not going to miss. BMAS gets savaged. Frozen somehow getting the assist, and finally picks up the AWP on about the 5th time of asking. It's all good. Don't think it makes a huge amount of difference. He's been caught in the side. 3 HP separating him from his demise. At least gets one, padding the stats a little bit. We'll look at some of those optimistic elements of this, but the round is over, as is the half, and it reads 11-4. It's another ridiculously one-sided affair.
Yeah, of course, that means we are...
slightly better outcome this time for Mousesports, but they still trail by quite a distance. 11-4 as opposed to 12-3 where Nuke ended. Will they be able to make the comeback where they were unable to on Nuke? We'll have to find out, and it needs to come from the T side. But Tom, I don't want to speak for you by any means, but I feel like we both share the opinion this is going to be quite the challenge.
Yeah, I definitely believe in Karrigan on his T sides, but this is a mountain to climb. Like, it's not whether or not we believe in Mousesports, it's whether or not we believe Vitality will let this slip, and with shots like that, well, we might as well just call it done from here. That's a must kill. It's a must have, and there's been a fair few of those, unfortunately, for Mousesports. I think Vitality have played excellently, but I also don't think Mousesports have played anywhere near their best.
I think that's a very fair assessment. Yeah. Mousesports just haven't really shown up at 100%. I feel like they're at 50 or maybe even less than that. And Vitality are very, very close to reaching their maximum capacity. It has been incredibly difficult to see Mousesports really get any kind of thing going their way. And RPK now, maybe doesn't get any kills, but he saw 3 players crossing there. Frozen makes the most of him missing. Catches him off guard, but they know this is very likely to be a B play. Mizuta can hold into position, needs to just try and lock this down for as long as possible. Can't really blame him for falling, but the bomb's been spilled down by Shox' USP, and this round may shatter with it, although Frozen will try and stick it and glue it back together again. Rops and Frozen stepping up when it's required, as will Mousesports. That's what we wanted to see. Second pistol goes their way.
Yeah, they needed that. And sure, that there was definitely an element of luck with RPK's aggression, but hey, he didn't know the last man was still lurking behind. But yeah, great job from Mousesports to bring that round back, because I think it's very easy to let rounds like that just completely spiral out of control. And, well, you have to say the other aspect as well is if RPK does manage a kill or two, then it probably does go in the other direction. So they'll take those. They've got to convert this round, though. And that's been some of the problems that we've witnessed, is that even them winning force buys earlier in the last map, they then lose a next round back, and their economy just seems to get absolutely owned at every case. Hey, take this map. They managed to beat all the force buys and then lose to a Glock and a couple of Deagles. So let's finally get a good half start for Mousesports, and then maybe we can start to believe.
Yeah, that is a good point, isn't it? We had a couple of ridiculous pistol rounds that went either way. And now Vitality looking to do more of the same. Flashbang out, Shox, greet them with the Deagle.
No!
Both! One was too much, but both is a collapse, a calamity. And Mousesports only have 2 players left.
I just can't get off to a clean start, can they? It's just not going to happen in this entire series. That's incredible from Shox. As said, he's having one of those days where he just seems unbeatable. But now they're just adding to this horrible situation for Mousesports. Shox is still going to be waiting goose. Are they going to expect him? They may not even need to. Cybo jumps up and takes one down, flying through the air. And then Shox closes it. Again, well, I mentioned in the round where they had Glocks and a couple of Deagles earlier, they didn't lose a player. This one, they're on a force buy. They only lose 1. It's these force buy rounds, these investment rounds, these pistol rounds from Vitality have completely changed the shape of the match. And Mousesports, well, once again, they're going to have to try and break back, but they've not been anywhere close, really, in a lot of these situations once it already goes wrong for Vitality.
Shox is having an absolute blinder of a best of 3. He's on, what, 22 kills at the moment. He picked up 19 kills in the first map, and the first map only went 16-6. So it goes to show that this guy, he's really living the old days, winding the clock back and proving to be a real nightmare to contend with. As I speak of him, does a bit of damage to Karrigan, who tries to rattle off with some Deag shots. Flashbang affords him safe passage back onto upper side of tunnels, but with his position known, Vitality will not be rotating off B. Middle taken again by Mousesports. Pretty standard, nothing out of the ordinary. This is a force buy from them. Oh, that grenade is brutal, though.
They can't catch a break. They literally cannot catch a break. They catch a grenade, but that's not really going to be too positive in this situation. They're going to try and split onto the A side. Now, again, this is normally a position that guarantees you a bomb plant, but they've actually placed not only RPK lurking, but Apex on the site itself. Now, normally you're a little bit more passive than this. They need to clear him, and they haven't done so. Apex peeks out with 2, but eventually he'll be silenced by Frozen, who doesn't last long at all. And, well, it's a bit of an awkward battle, but RPK gets it through in the end. A slight upgrade available for him. A 13-5 situation, probably 14-5 as well, Vince, as they're going to want to at least get a bye, right?
You'd think so, yeah. But, you know, the way this best of 3's gone, maybe just stick with the pistols, guys, because they seem to have got more success from Deagles and P250s.
I can't believe I brought Asia with me. I genuinely can't believe it. I've watched Tai Lu do that 15 times, and yet I'm still surprised. Did you know, actually, that's just something interesting for most people probably won't care, but at least at the end of that tournament, Tai Lu had the highest second round win percentage of any team in the world.
Jeez.
Off 4 spies. It's ridiculous. It was something like 25%, which sounds like a fairly low number, but when you think about that, that's just them going into pistols against like an adverse spy on the other side. Like, that's madness. Obviously, again, you take into account that the opposition on the other side is a lot of the time going to be weaker, as they had been stuck in Asia for quite a long time. And they did actually end up not winning a tournament, which was the RMR. So there's been interesting things everywhere. The reason I'm bringing this up is because Mousesports are getting banged 14-5, and it's the most interesting thing I can think of at the moment.
Yeah, this game hasn't really delivered the hype that I was expecting, honestly. I was licking my lips when I saw this was our first game of the day. But so with Vitality, as it turns out, for very different reasons. And now, with a vast lead, Mousesports on the back foot, and what could be their last chance to get anything done in this best of 3. Right idea, not too far off on the scout shot was Chris J. And Apex witnesses that bullet just whiz past his head. He maintains 100% of his health, though, and he can now dart back into the CT spawn. Mousesports, again, looking to take middle control, but we've been here so many times, and they've been toothless on their endeavors. Will this one be any different?
Yeah, weirdly, out of all the setups that we normally see on Dust 2, this is probably one of the more standard ones. Like, very passive holds coming out from Vitality, not going for much information even. Just lurking around mid, player on B, couple of players on A. The only surprise factor might be Zywoo and Goose, but considering Long's been taken, that position stops being very valuable for that reason. Carrigan's just absolutely owned in. Apex has to try and take back some control. He's screwed. That flashbang is spot on from Chris, and they've got the A site completely under their control. It's left up. What? Oh my God. Shox is having one of those days. He's even going to get frozen as well. Oh, just DC. There's nothing you can do. You can't fight this. This is legendary Shox. He's returning to the server, and well, hide. That's all you can hope to do.
When they said Vitality had the best player in the world, perhaps they weren't talking about Zywoo after all in this kind of form. Masuta lands the scout shot, but Shox. The bloodlust has descended. It's insatiable for this man, but his teammate's gone down. Can he feasibly clutch on 19 HP? No. But he's entertaining in the process, and Mousesports at least get 6.
I have to say, like, going back in the day, I know that people, that they talk about, like, Kenny, talk about JW. My favorite player, like, if you go back, say, like, 5-6 years, was Shox. Like, watching him play at peak performance, there's nothing like him. I'll never forget I think it's Bardoff casting that clip on Overpass of him just running up mid at a pistol round and acing, like, the whole team. Like, when he hits his level, there's nothing more entertaining. And 27 kills so far. As said, he was great on the first map. If he's going to hit his level in this tournament, I could easily see Vitality winning it.
Honestly, I'm right alongside with you, man, because as we said before, there are so many pieces of this puzzle of Vitality that need to be dealt with. And we've even seen RPK, you know, having big moments. We know that Apex has it within him additionally. Speaking of Apex, has been called upon to diminish the oncoming T's, and distributing plenty of bullets will do just that. Good flashbang, Masuta on the wrong side of middle. Gets punished before Shox is called upon one more time. 28 kills to his name with an AWP. Had the right idea, but a bit too slow on the trigger. For the first time of today, he actually comes out second best in a trade. And now Rops can go back in for more. Post-plant, Vitality's economy not in great shape, and they're not allowed the chance to escape either. Frozen cuts them off. Much more like it from Mousesports, and with a broken economy and Vitality, maybe there are ways forward yet.
Yeah, I'm glad to see them return to the board the way they have as well. Like, there's been a couple of nice little strats coming out, some decent splits, some good timing, some good flashbangs from the side of Mousesports. Like, that wasn't just like one player like dragging them out of a hole. That was some very well worked team play rounds. So if we can see more of this style of thing, then I'm going to be much happier, even if they end up losing this, because that's the main thing. You don't want to see them just get slapped out of the first match, and then you go, oh, okay, well, they've got Fnatic and OG to come. As said, OG Inform and Fnatic, you never know. You never know what you're going to get. Like, it's literally like a bag of revels. Like, just guess and hope. Maybe you can feel something a little bit and go, oh, maybe it's that. But no, chances are you're never going to be able to predict what team you see. So if Mousesports can at least start grinding back into this one, sure, if they get to like 11 or 12 rounds, maybe we start to call questions on whether or not Vitality are letting this one slip, especially with T-side momentum. I mentioned it in the first half. I'll mention it in the second one as well. Rounds like this is where you gain confidence. Some squeaky clean rounds, please, Mousesports. A chance for an 8th. And in fact, they've realized last man's over on A. Just go B.
Yep, chance to build the confidence, chance to build their bank balance additionally. And, well, RPK has been put down by Robs. 8 rounds now on Mousesports. They will have to withstand a full buy. Misuta can drop an AWP across to Zaiwu, which he will do just that. I was about to say, if he wants to, of course they do. It's Zaiwu's does too. Why the hell wouldn't you do that? So, Vitality now have a solid buy, but it's a solid round. You know, Mousesports starting to show us what they're capable of doing, albeit against an eco, so I'm not going to get too carried away. I'm not going to begin to believe in this comeback until Mousesports hit like 11 or 12 rounds, honestly. Because up until that moment, Vitality are always just a couple steps away from putting an end to this quickly.
Yeah, it's a long road, but it's a workable one. Zaiwu now going to be back on his trusty AWP. And again, we're seeing a relatively passive hold from Vitality. They're eventually going to take control of long, but they're not really fighting for too many avenues of control. A lot of the time you see teams try and maybe take over shore, or even have some aggression into the tunnels, or at least have a player with presence over towards B. They're getting quite a lot of it for free, though. Like, there hasn't been much of a challenge into long. It's mainly been this push onto shore, and Apex is just going to sit back, passive. Doesn't have whole lot of utility to his name. A single smoke and a flashbang, and again the CTs are left without a kit, so an after plant on this B site, which has been a personal favorite of Mousesports so far, would be a real problem. For now though, here comes the flash. Zaiwu left blind, and it's going to be BMAS actually who managed to drop down from short to get that opening pick. It leaves this B site vulnerable again. It's Misuta, it's Shocks.
Oh, he's not affected by the flashbang either. He moved too far backwards, but his teammates died on the site. So Misuta can only get the one. It will be another save. A really cool tactic as well with that drop down on CT with BMAS and also flashing outside of middle, completely screwing Zaiwu. This two-pronged hit simultaneously while fully flashed. No, never stood a chance of getting anything done. And, oh, Apex spots his teammate darting back on the long side. It seems the two of them may be able to save this. There is enough funds, though, for Mousesports to justify going in for this, knowing that the economy on the CTs will be pretty rough.
Yeah, at this point, you basically just have to look at it and go, can we buy for 1 round? Yes. Then we're fine to hunt down some of these weapons. I don't think they're going to want to throw too much into the wind with potential rebuys. Carrigan, he goes down. It really doesn't matter. He's got plenty to buy, and the rest of the team are just going to hold on to their weaponry. So Mouse slowly starting to grind things back. I do want to see Vitality being a little bit more proactive. As said, thus far, they've been almost gifted long. I feel like that's something that Mousesports aren't necessarily challenging for. The main position I want to see them fight for is short. I think if you take that away, that one of the prongs to this Mousesports attack disappears, and you could very easily predict if they're going to head into the B side, because long hasn't been one of their main avenues of attack so far. So I'd like to see that. Maybe a little bit of cheeky aggression into the tunnels, but obviously that has a lot more risk behind it.
Find out if they do decide to.
Oh my God.
3 years old when RPK joined his first pro team in CS Source. Jesus, RPK feels old right now. So do I, actually.
That's the thing, like, BMAS is still in school right now. So this youngster's doing a lot. This round, though, couple of weapons. It is going to be the battle for long. And while it is an absolute slaughter, easy stuff for Mousesports. Shock's going to try and get some damage done with the pistol, but Mousesports as well, now starting to do much better in these anti-ecos. We mentioned it before. They were losing a lot of players to these sort of rounds. How is Masuta alive? Just straight up fighting them, but they'll eventually fall as well.
We were teased at the idea of that long battle, but it ended up being a pretty one-sided affair. Curious if Vitality will go for it again now that they have full weapons behind them, or if that was more of a setup for a different take, maybe some middle control, some aggression. I mean, we know that some teams do go aggressively. We saw Chris J do this with an AWP through the tunnels. But Vitality not really going for it just yet. Wu holding the angle, tagging Carrigan, but just blows his legs off. There's a slight gap in the smoke, and Apex makes the most of it. BMAS jumps out alone, gift wrapping a free kill across, but also an upgrade. There's an AK down that the tank can now take for himself. Or pardon me, Apex takes for himself. But Mousesports have made ground up middle. Smokes are good. Saiwu narrowly missing out, but two weakened players from Mousesports could be cannon fodder for Mizuta. Alongside Shocks to hold the line with. Shocks has an AWP. Not exactly tailor-made for these situations, but he'll still make it work. Engineering Vitality potentially into a 15th round, crafting them one step further, spotting the head of Rock over the boxes and takes him down for his 30th kill of the map and Vitality's 15th.
I want to see the kill he got with the wallbang. Like, I'm not even sure I witnessed that firsthand, but Shocks is having an incredible performance. And unfortunately, that one was a lot more disjointed from what we've seen previously from Mousesports. Like the initial pick, obviously one player getting killed through the smoke is a little bit unlucky. You can't really do too much about that. But in a 5v3, I'm not banking on Mousesports like I was with Vitality in those situations. Like Vitality have been very good at converting a lot of these rounds, whereas Mouse have definitely had some issues today. As said, it's good to see them grind back a couple of rounds, at least get into the match towards the end, but now they have to make this count. Every single round matters. 5 in the row needed to stay in this series. They already lost the first map in dominant fashion to Vitality. It looks like, once again, they might be about to challenge for long, or just patiently waiting to see if anybody else aggresses.
Chris has broken the deadlock in round 26. Shocks goes down to his hands. That's a pretty important play that goes with him. So it's looking passive, but they do at least get first blood. Rops taking some middle control. BMAS this time is supported with flashbangs and smokes. He goes out alone. It's a one-man mission. Maybe sacrificed for the rest of his teammates. Now Mizuta shows his hand. Bit of damage onto Rops, slowing down the T's, but they still have 3 players over on this side of the map. So Mizuta will have to hold this down single-handedly against 3 more players. Molly tossed in towards the back of the site. Try as he may. Carrigan low, he still falls. And Vitality can't do much but save the AWP. Mousesports one step closer.
Yeah, once again, it came down to them ultimately winning their duels. I think that's also one of the first pieces of aggression that we've seen from Shocks, like properly peeking into mid. As said previously, it's been very passive, and Chris was just patiently waiting. You'll see him a lot of the rounds that they play actually on the Mousesports side. He just watches mid. That's all he does. He just sits there patiently waiting. So it's worked out for them here. BMAS as well, that was a much better attempt as well. Like he had the smokes, had the flashbangs, didn't get absolutely wrecked by Apex either. So 15 to 11, still enough money to buy. I think we're seeing a few weapons potentially being juggled around. Maybe Shocks questioning as to whether or not he goes for a secondary AWP. And if so, if he's going to play it as aggressively as he's had, because that's been one of the issues, is that I think this B split, because he has an AWP, if he doesn't hit his initial shot, that's pretty much it done. It becomes very, very difficult with the surrounding style that Mousesports have had. I think their timing through the smokes on B has been very good the majority of the time as well. So they're slowly growing into this one. Still 4 rounds in a row versus Vitality is quite a lot to handle.
They also agree with your assessment because typically it's been Shox playing over on B with Masuta. This time they had Apex joining them with Shox watching middle. So now that the early confrontation hasn't been anything too rapid through middle or B, they will start to make a move with a 3-player stack over on the middle side of B. They feel like B side is where Mousesports are a little bit more deadly and dominant, but this does leave A that little bit more vulnerable, Tom. And ZywOo with a lot more pressure. He basically is watching short by himself with the AWP.
We talk a lot about combos in Counter-Strike. Go back to Crimson Olov. There's plenty more to name. I think ZywOo and pressure might be another one, though, as this man seems to thrive within it. RPK is already going to get the opener. This sort of leaves it down to just a short push, but there is a second player looking to lurk in. Apex has just found one more, and a dunk onto Chris J on the bomb plant. It's going to leave him even lower. Timing actually kind of works out for Frozen, though, but it looks like he might just wrap back around to try and gather up with the rest of his teammates. There's still aggression from RPK waiting, and BMAS has managed to found Masuta. Chris J, he's going to try and hold this one off with the AWP. As the cross looks to come in, he nails the shot into Apex, but RPK again has found another. Both players now on short, and a shot missed gives some space for them to get onto the bomb. Another connective from Chris, but he can't quite get the final. The lineup, though, from BMAS. He will close out the round. It couldn't have been closer. He'll even save an AWP, and Mousesports, they go marching on.
Oh man, Chris landed such a beautiful flick shot back on the approach there, but BMAS lining them up with the AK-47. This is where the lack of smoke or incendiary was a bitter body blow for Vitality. They'd have loved to have thrown a smoke down, forced the T's to try and push through there, but because they'd already used so much on the approach, they only had flashes left. And Mouse weren't really too bothered about that. Now you can see the effect it has into this round. Vitality have to dip down to an MP9 with some pistols and just a couple of scraps of utility. Every chance for Mousesports now to draw us back towards overtime. It's definitely not off the table now. It looked dead and buried at one point, this map, but now it's very much alive. And Mousesports will have to contend with a 4-player stack over on Catwalk. I understand this play from Vitality. Mousesports have loved their Catwalk control, so it makes sense to stack 4 here. And the second they hear any noise, they will just be bursting in. May go a bit prematurely. The flashbang timing could not have been sweeter. And BMAS has done a great job of repelling this push. Good flashbang in, but actually it's an even trade. That may not favor Mousesports, but they need to hold on to this angle and make sure they can't grab any more weapons. You saw a wide swinging shot go straight into play again, but Apex using the smoke gets 2 kills to his name. Spray through the smoke now, not able to get any more, ascertain any information, but they will be boosting over there, and Shox spots more players. 31 kills to his name, and Chris J gets finished off by ZywOo. And wouldn't you know it, Tom, they get it done with pistols and an MP9.
God damn it, Mousesports. Again, like it's heartbreaking to watch that, because as we've sort of mentioned, like they had so many like slip-up rounds within this match that basically made the difference, and that's unfortunate. Like they had some of the worst economic starts I think we've seen for any team in any match ever, like constantly being reset with like silly pistol wins coming up for Vitality. And of course, you have to give credit over to Vitality. They played an impressive game, but you just think if maybe 1 or 2 of those rounds goes back the other way, Mousesports could have taken that one.
Oh, they absolutely could, Tom. I honestly think that Mousesports will be coming out of this bitterly disappointed. After getting ravaged on Nuke, they had chances to take that Dust 2 to at least overtime, and at that point, it's anybody's game. So it's kind of unfortunate, but we'll have the desk break it down, Tom, a bit further and go through just how excellent Vitality were and how close Mousesports were to potentially taking us to a third after this break.
Well, that was not the result that we expected, or at least not that clearly, Christine. We both said Vitality should be the favorite in that game, but did you see it that clearly happening? I mean, Mousesports did put up a fight at the end, but that was very one-sided.
It was so one-sided, and you know, I kind of felt bad for Mousesports coming into this series. While watching this series, you know, you talk about that one-sided affair on the first map. We got to talk about Chris J. You know, statistically, he was towards the bottom across both maps, but I felt bad for him. You know, I felt like he didn't really have an opportunity to get himself into this match. You know, we saw glimpses of it on this stuff too, especially towards the end. He was hitting those shots. He was starting to heat up a little bit, but just Nuke being the first map in this series, it didn't give him a lot of room to move around and get really invested into the match.
Yeah, the problem as well, we talked about Nuke, we talked about the T side for Mousesports. If we go back in time, when Mousesports beat Vitality in the last confrontation, I believe they won 11 rounds on the T side. That was absolutely a masterpiece coming out of Carrigan's squad. They had the ability to pick up the pace, all the phase were working, Frozen was all over the place. Now you move to this game, their T side, it's a 12-3 victory for Vitality, with ZywOo at the bottom of the scoreboard with 9 kills. And I don't mean it as a diss, absolutely not. To me, that's respect I'm paying to Vitality. They absolutely did not rely on ZywOo, but oh, wait a minute, I believe someone's at the door.
Sorry, guys. A couple of technical issues from my end there. I'm back. Unfortunately, something was going wrong with my microphone. Thank you so much, guys, for taking us through that one. I think we need to start really unpicking that Nuke win from Vitality, because Maniac, we were saying beforehand, you know, we expected Vitality to be coming out the gates hot, but maybe not this hot, because they looked so good.
Well, I had said that the conditions through which Mousesports won their last game should not happen again. I did not see Frozen with the extraordinary game coming once more, but I did not expect Vitality to completely destroy them. We have also to pay some tribute to RPK. He was stopping the charge, 26 kills. He was Imperial in the inside, always good for 2 or 3. Everything was working for Vitality, and for Mousesports, well, nothing was working.
Yeah, I want to pick up on RPK as well, because I know we were talking about it earlier, Potter. You know, we were saying that he's a reliable force within the team. And it's almost a little bit surprising, you know, to see him come out with these kind of numbers, just looking so clean on that first map.
Absolutely. And you know, RPK, he's not going to be the flashiest player in that server, but it's what I talked about. He's so dependable, so damn dependable. He tends to always just choose the optimal duels, those type of duels that allows all of his teammates to properly rotate, all of his teammates to properly throw the right utility. And speaking of utility, man, Apex, he's got turbo Nikes on, because he's on the A side, then the B side, then middle, throwing the perfect flashbangs, teeing up his teammates, specifically ZywOo. It seems like he's always that insurance card for this Vitality squad. He's always got the perfect flashbangs to pull his teammates out of those sticky situations. And he's everywhere, man. And it's so good to see that Vitality have made such huge adjustments, because Tom Biz, he mentioned it. The first time around these two teams met up in that rematch, it was a completely T-sided affair. The CT defenses were lacking on both fronts, but Vitality, you could see that they were absolutely prepared for everything that Mousesports threw their way. All those set pieces, those inner flashbang plays that Mousesports love and depend on. Vitality, they were ready for it time and time again.
Yeah, let's pick up on that a little bit, because obviously this was a grudge match. Mousesports actually ended up winning last time they faced. So from your perspective, Maniac, what were the key adjustments that Vitality were making?
Well, I mean, obviously, strategically, Apex was more ready for it than he was the first time around. I think Nuke was a good example where he punished Frozen a couple of times on their T side. But as he mentioned in his interview, individually, there was a world of difference between the two games. Now, we could talk about the fact that Vitality are in bootcamp right now. That wasn't the case when they played together the last time. So it might make a difference. I do believe it makes a huge difference in a time in Counter-Strike where most people play from home, remotely. We all moved on to the online world. Now they get together, and you can see they all give that extra 10%. And for each player who in some way are influenced emotionally in the game, and Shox is one of them, I would put definitely in that category, well, you get the best form, you get his A game when they are all together, when the spirits are high and the focus at the max.
Yeah, it's been incredibly impressive to see this development from them. And I believe we will be able to check in with Shox from Vitality after that incredible performance from him. Let's see if we can bring him up onto the stream. Oh, there we go. There's the sound that we've all been waiting for. Shox, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, man. We were just talking about, you know, it's such an impressive turnaround for you guys from last time that you faced Mousesports. Can you tell us about some of the specific changes that you were looking to make and that you pulled off in this game?
First, hello everyone. That's a good one. Bonjour, bonjour. Just before I was coming, I think Maniac definitely got a good point, considering the situation and that we just arrived in bootcamp at the beginning of the week. Even if we have been working on some details since the last event, I think the real difference is that we are really happy to meet together, and it's definitely a different atmosphere that when you are playing from home, and sometimes you just kind of feel like every day is the same, even if it's unofficial, where in bootcamp you don't really have this feeling.
Yeah, and in terms of your performance as well, like you looked incredible throughout the entirety of this series. How has the team kind of been shifting around you to sort of allow you to perform that way?
The first funny thing is that I discovered arriving at the bootcamp that I didn't have the same sensitivity, and I was like, but I don't understand. Like I did everything like at home or whatever, but my sensitivity is way different. So the fact is, I playing with the sensitivity at home. I don't know what it is, and I'm gonna definitely need to fix that. But the good one is the one you just saw today, so that's the first thing. And yeah, the second thing is that I'm really happy just to be with the guys, to be together, and I'm definitely not in the same mindset. I would say it helps me a lot.
Yeah, that is fantastic to hear. Maniac, I know you had a couple of questions you wanted to ask.
Yeah, well, first of all, maybe you should just keep this sensitivity because things are working really well for you. So maybe that's your new sensitivity. Just talking about the map, I wanted to ask you your confidence about Nuke, because the last time you played, you lost 16-14. That was a crazy game, clutches left and right, and this time you completely destroyed them. How confident were you going on to Nuke?
Pretty good, because we had a good game plan against them. Plus, Nuke had been definitely one of our worst maps recently. So it's been one of our focus the past weeks when we have practice day. So I'm happy that it pays off, and hopefully we can maintain this from on this map.
Shox, I have to ask, it seems like the Shox under the old Vitality with Alex leadership and the Shox now, Shox 2.0 maybe, under this Apex leadership, there's a huge difference. It just seems like you are absolutely activated in that server. Can you tell me, what are the small or major differences between these two different in-game leaders for yourself?
I believe that when I joined Vitality with Alex, after 1 or 2 months, we started to have some intern problems where everyone were not on the same page. So I was kinda infected by this. Plus, you have to think that I've been leader in game in G2 for almost 4 years. So coming back as a player was definitely a hard task for me, because I was kinda lost at the beginning and I didn't know what should I do to help the team. And more and more the time go, more and more I feel comfortable, more and more my role is clear in my mind. That's what the team expect from me, how I can help them, and we solved as well a lot of intern problems that we could have at the end of the year last year or at the beginning of this one. So it feels good as well, and yeah, I think that's two key things.
If I can just jump in, I wanted to ask you, can you explain to us and the viewers how is your relationship with Apex? Do you help him a lot during the game or in the preparation? Do you help him as co-IGL or anything, or absolutely not? I think the people would really like to know a little bit.
Actually, I'm doing a bit of everything. As you mentioned, First, I always, for myself, want to check demos before we are playing an opponent because I want to be aware about what they can do, to not be surprised in the game. So, of course, if I have some knowledge that I saw that maybe the coach didn't see or Apex didn't see when they were watching, I'm gonna add it to what they are saying to make sure that everyone are on the page. The thing is more like Apex is calling, and I kinda would say propose him if I can every round, of course, but sometimes it's not the case. But at least ideas, so he's always having ideas, even if saying me no because he wants to do something else. At least he got something else to do if necessary. So in this case, I'm trying as much as I can to help him. That we always have an idea about what we are doing, and I'm able to just make some redirection. Can be in XVX, 5v fan anyway. But if there are some information important or whatever, I can call at any time as any players in the team basically, because CS is all about communication and information. So yeah, it's a lot of things like this, I would say.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I was watching another interview with Apex a couple of weeks ago, and he was really praising the role of your coach as well, Xtaz. How has he kind of been instrumental in the team's success? I know Apex was saying he's brought a lot of discipline to the team.
Yeah, definitely. He's bringing a lot of discipline. He also makes sure that we are all connected and we are all sure that what we are doing in the game, everyone understands their role and everyone understands why we are doing this. Because from the point where you understand why we are doing something, then you definitely will have more confidence in doing it. You know, because if you just don't do like something because someone tell you to do this, but you don't really understand why, or you don't really know why, you won't go with the same confidence. Plus, I would say, in my opinion, the most important thing that he's doing is keeping as much a team spirit outside the game. What I mean is that we are a team together. We are going through difficulties with the situation everyone knows in the world. And it's really important to keep communication even outside the game, to just speak together about in-game problems, about personal problems or whatever, to make sure that we are a group, we are together, and we are unite. You know, as much as we are unite, we can do everything in the game. But if we don't have this unite, sometimes that's where you're gonna see some bad things going into the game itself.
Well, Shox, it's been absolutely fantastic to speak to you. Absolutely fantastic to see you guys on the server. I thoroughly look forward to seeing more of you here at DreamHack Open Fall. Congratulations on that win once again.
Thank you. Have a good day. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, Shox. Great energy that he's bringing to the desktop. Nice. I absolutely love it. And a lot of answers we're getting there, Maniac. You know, we were praising him for his performance throughout the entirety of this series, and there seems to be good reason behind it. The team synergy and cohesion just seems to be on point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe that Shox is a player with whom his level is close to how he helps the team and how much space he has to the team. There's a correlation between that. If you allow Shox to have that space, if you allow him to kind of have his imprint, his influence on what's happening in the game, maybe will it be the pistol rounds, will it be some clutch situations or 5v4, when he's feeling it, that's going to create a much bigger momentum. It's not only about him, his keyboard, his mouse hitting some shots, but also he knows he can make the team win by having some calls left and right. And don't get me wrong, sometimes he's been given that space and he's not taking it, and that's his responsibility. It's not always on the team. But I do believe that they have found a way to work together. The trio of Xtaz, Apex, and Shox as the more talking head in the squad right now, I think it's working, and we can see that in the consistency that this lineup has been having in the past few months.
Yeah, it's been looking absolutely beautiful from there. Maniac, I know you had a particular moment that you wanted to break down that kind of started things rolling for Vitality in this series.
I mean, yes, we can talk about it. Of course, if you're a Mousesports fan, now would be the time to go get some coffee. You know, maybe just don't watch it. Call your friends, call your parents. Maybe you haven't seen them in a long time. But I wanted to talk about the Glock round. Christine, I don't know if you remember that. And if you can see on the right side, there's 3 Deagles, 2 Glocks coming in from Vitality. That's the round on Dust 2. We see the 8 coming in with 1 boost. Chris J is completely out of position. He's caught off guard. And that first kill right here is going to begin a succession of terrible, terrible, terrible events. We see Kerrigan doing his best. He's blocking Apex for as long as he possibly can. RPK is going to find the kill onto Bimas here, and that forces Kerrigan to focus on the A side. Then you have Apex coming in from behind, and you have basically a 5 versus 2. I repeat, ladies and gentlemen, not a single Kevlar was purchased in that round. We had 3 Deagles, 2 Glock. These were the investment coming out of Vitality, and they are going to win this round with 5 men alive. This right here was the beginning of a crazy round spree for the Frenchies on the T side of Dust 2. And I think mentally speaking, it's just hurting. It's hurting if you're Mousesports. You finally feel like you have a way back into the game. You want the force buy on Dust 2. You say, okay, high five left and right. If we're in boot camp, we can do this now. And then you lose a round against Glock and Deagle, and that is it. So I didn't want to show it for the tactical aspect of it, but emotionally speaking, that was such a terrible, terrible moment for Mousesports.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because we thought, you know, it might be all over after that. But actually, Christine, Mousesports really, really tried their hardest to get back into it. Did you see kind of any key adaptations from Mousesports in those final moments of Dust 2?
I did. And, you know, even looking back on Nuke, I saw it as well. And that's one of the great things about Mousesports. One of the great things about Kerrigan is that they will always try. They will always bring out all the ideas. And we saw it, right? Even on this Dust 2, there was a fantastic B-mid split with the coordination of Kerrigan and B-Mass with the cat drop. So these sorts of ideas is what we know and love about Mousesports, but the crux of it is sometimes it gets sloppy, right? But I think the key thing here is it's to be expected. B-Mass, he still needs to gel. He still needs to marinate just a little bit. My expectation, I think, for Mousesports coming into this weekend, it was a little bit higher. I thought that whole month-long EPL stint that these guys had would allow B-Mass to feel a lot more comfortable, but I think it's going to be another one of those kind of Frozen projects. Right now, Frozen, he's looking like a superstar, but it took him quite some time to get to this point. So B-Mass, we might still need a little bit of time for him to gel with the rest of his mates.
I think that's a really valid point that you bring up here, and it's something that Mousesports, they're really no strangers to. You know, they did exactly the same thing with Rops when he was still in school. They were having to, you know, put their practice sessions around Rops' education. Exactly the same thing with B-Mass Maniac. So it's kind of no surprises that it might take a little bit more time to gel together.
No, absolutely. And when you take Bimas in your team, you're making a bet on the future. But I think it's a good bet. I think he has shown already, he has proven everyone that he is worth a shot, he's worth a chance, and he can already match with some of the best players in the world. You got to give him the time to get there. Christine is talking about sloppiness. I completely agree. If you go back on Nuke, round number 14 and 15 for Vitality are absolute 4v5s. I'm talking about 25 seconds to the round. They're 4v5. They have no way back in, and somehow they find a way, an open kill that they shouldn't have. So there are mistakes on the side of Mousesports, but it is to be expected. Sure, there's going to be some errors left and right, some approximations, but this team is looking for the long run, and I think they have a decent squad now. It's coherent when you look at it from the outside. There is still one problem, though. It's the AWP situation. The flux between Kerrigan and Chris J is either absolutely genius when it's working, or it's really a problem when it's not. And I don't really see the long term of that. They're going to have to make a choice, I believe.
Yeah, and of course, Vitality did make that a quick one to start off our run here at DreamHack Open 4, but there were also games going on at the same time as this as well. I believe the Sprout game is just about to finish up here. Obviously, that's the Group B standings. It looks like, if I'm looking on my screen correctly, it's 15-11 currently to the side of Sprout. So they might be taking that 2-0 over NIP Maniac.
I am quite surprised, I'm going to be honest. I think we are underestimating NIP a little bit because of that period where Threat had to stand in for them. Obviously, we did not take them so seriously. But if you go back in time a little bit, when Nok joined, I think they had such a fresh face, such a good form that they were showing, almost back in the top 10 in the world as far as I'm concerned. And now Sprout are on the brink of beating him 2-0. So I would qualify that as an upset. I don't know, Christine, if you agree.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely an upset. You know, my expectations for NIP were quite high coming into this tournament because, as Matthew mentioned, sure, Threat, the coach, was a stand-in as Nok took that lead. But in those matches that Threat was a stand-in, they were neck and neck close. Just look at these score lines. 16-14 lost to Fnatic, 16-11. Threat, he didn't put up the frags, but the rest of the squad, I thought it was a good experience for them to be without their superstar and Nok. And I figured that this honeymoon period would ignite with his return, but Sprout, man, you can't write these guys off. We were just talking about it in the green room. Snatchy and Dihal, the two Polish duo brothers on this squad, they were absolute huge pickups for these Sprout guys, because we have to remember who Sprout lost before this. It was Farlake and it was Searson, right? So it was Searson and Tizian,
I believe. Yeah, they went to big.
Yeah. So
they went to big.
There were two huge losses. So having these guys and Dihal and Snatchy just absolutely step up and potentially steal away this first opening match, it's huge for these Sprout guys.
Yeah, that stands them in good stead indeed. But of course, there was another match going on at the same time as well. Of course, our Group C opening match, that was Godsent versus Saw. Interestingly enough, I actually saw them in a qualifier game yesterday. Saw managed to beat Godsent, whereas now Godsent have actually managed to take the 2-0. But it was incredibly close. We're looking at Vertigo going 16-9, then Nuke 16-14. I don't know whether Godsent should be leaving it this close, Maniac.
I have no idea. I'm going to be honest. Godsent, I've kind of lost them on my radar recently. I know that Farlake is an interesting pickup. He was one of the names making waves in the Danish sub-tier scene, and he definitely was one to be interested in. Now he joins Godsent. Michael is out. I still have the question of Crystal, and believe me, that comes from the heart. I appreciate Kevin a lot, but when you look at his numbers, I know he brings something else to the table. I know he has a mind for Counter-Strike. Maybe he's a perfect teammate, but he is the lowest rated player in this event, if you look at the past 3 months, by a very fair margin. And at the end of the day, Counter-Strike is also about kills. It's about impact. It's about finding the individual difference. Even if you can be the perfect teammate, if you can think about the game, maybe one day there's a transition into behind the scenes that could be possible for him, because he needs to do more. Now, I'm not going to go and judge for that game because I didn't see it, but Godsent to me is still some kind of a black box.
Yeah, it's going to be a question mark indeed. But of course, it was a quick one to start off the day here at DreamHack Open Full. But that's not all the action that we have in store for you just yet. Of course, it's going to be OG versus Fnatic later, Christine. That's going to be an interesting one because we've got Group A. It's really stacking up to be a huge match.
Oh, it's going to be so huge. And once again, that's another rematch from the semifinals of IEM. And as we mentioned in the pre-show, it was OG coming out on top and making it to the grand finals for the first time since that squad has been formed. So really, both of these guys, they're looking up and up. And Fnatic, you can always count on this squad to make it into the semifinals, if not the grand finals. They seem to always perform when it matters most. And the pressure is on. We talked about it in the pre-show. All 16 teams in this tournament, they're looking for that first place.
There's so much on the line for this tournament. And of course, it's going to be kicking off again after this break. Another team is out for blood. And this time, it's the fleet of Fnatic as they return to take on OG. It's more Group A action here at DreamHack Open Full, and it's coming up after this.